Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. I'm TJ Smith. I'm Johnny Olszewski's press secretary, and welcome to the West County Public Safety Forum. So tonight, if this is your first time here, welcome. But this is our third time in West County with a public forum. And for those of you who haven't been here before, we just want to make sure we have a good evening and everybody who wants to comment gets an opportunity to comment. So we have a brief presentation that the county executive and Chief Hyatt are going to go over in just a few minutes. It'll be on the screen there. And when we get to that point of question and answer, we have two mics on both sides of the auditorium. You can line up over there midway through the presentation if you want to ask a question, but we ask that you keep your comments to about 2 minutes. And that's just to be respectful of everybody else who wants to talk, and that's also to be respectful of the house that we're borrowing tonight, because we have to be out of here at a certain time. So appreciate that in advance. And without further ado, we're going to kick this off shortly, but wanted to just welcome a few people from the government that are here. Baltimore County Administrative Officer Ms. Stacy Rogers, who's also a resident of District 4. So welcome. The Director of Recs and Parks, Mr. Barry Williams. We're keeping them busy, getting ready for the Oregon Ridge Spectacular. Mr. Tony Bazemore of the Baltimore County Public Schools Government Relations back there. Thank you. Mr. Drew Vetter, the Deputy Baltimore County Administrator. Director Rob O'Connor back there, making sure that our computers are working. And if anybody else I forgot from our government, I apologize. Our interns are here helping me out greatly tonight. So thank you all, and thank you all for being here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to County Executive Olszewski, and we'll get started.
Thanks, TJ. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Welcome, and thank you for coming out to this town hall. This has become a real favorite thing of mine to do in this job, is to actually come out and engage with people. Of course, we have to do a small conversation and presentation because I'm a teacher, and just sort of part of who I am. But I think that you deserve to know what's happening with your government. And that's part of why we do these things. It's about sort of sharing some information so that as you are providing comments or asking us questions, they're informed questions and they're informed comments so that we can put it all in context and then we can take action. I'll be introducing our outreach team later on, who will actually be taking any concerns that you may raise, and so we can start moving forward on them tomorrow. Before I get into some of the presentation, I want to acknowledge some of our elected officials who have joined us tonight. First and foremost, I see the dynamic duo on the council, my partners on the county council. I see local councilman Julian Jones here. And since we're expanding the West a little bit, we're doing 3 forums. District 2 Councilman Izzy Patoka is also here with us. We have some incredible state partners who are fighting for you and for Baltimore County at the state level. First, we acknowledge District 10 Delegate Ben Brooks. And I know Delegate Charles Sidnor is here from District 44B. TJ gave me a list of other people too. So I'm going to run through some other folks. Mike Sparks is here representing Councilman Tom Quirk, who's also District 1 over here in Western Baltimore County. We have George White, who's a member of the Central Committee. Lisa Bel Castro, Central Committee. We have Sheila Ruth is on the Central Committee. She's here with us tonight. And Sean Ford here is representing Delegate Eric Ebersol from District 12. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. All right, I've got a few more we'll do in just a bit as we get through part of the process. So this is the second round of public safety meetings that we've had here in Baltimore County, and we're doing it because I know just how critical public safety is to ensure that we have strong communities. I'm an educator, so education is my passion and my purpose, and I'm committed to schools, but I also know that we have to make sure that our communities are safe. And as county executive, it's one of the most important responsibilities I have is public safety at the local level, and that's why the selection of a police chief is probably one of the most important jobs that I have, putting that forward. So I just want to remind audiences as we sort of do these town halls, we conducted a very extensive, thorough process as part of it, and it was very intentionally open and inclusive. And I'm thrilled to be welcoming Baltimore County's Police Chief, Melissa Hyatt, as we kick off this series of meetings. I want you to know that I have every confidence that Chief Hyatt is the right person to take this county to the next level. We have a lot of, I think, actually very encouraging numbers we're going to share. We also have places where I think we can do better. We're going to talk through some of that data tonight. But I have every confidence that Chief Hyatt will take the very strong leadership team and very strong department that she already has, and will be inspiring them to respond to her leadership and to respond to this moment in time in Baltimore County. So just as a reminder in terms of how the process went, we had approximately 50 applications came in. We assembled 2 town hall meetings. One was here, one was over in Dundalk. We also had an online email form where people could submit ideas about what they wanted to see in the next leader and for the future of the department. We had a panel. Before I get to that, we met with our partners. I want to recognize actually Anthony Russell from the Blue Guardians, who's here tonight. I also see Dave Rose from the FOP. But we met with our partners in the Blue Guardians, the FOP, and the Women's Organization of Police, because it's really important to talk to our stakeholders, to talk to our community, and to have this be an open process. We also pulled together a panel of individuals, 3 from the community, a victims advocate, our state's attorney, Councilwoman Kathy Bevins, TJ Smith, and Drew Vetter, to actually screen all the applicants, conduct the first round of interviews. From there, actually I had no involvement until there was an interview of 4, and those interviews were conducted by myself. They were conducted by our administrative officer, Stacey Rogers, and they were conducted with my chief of staff. What I can tell you is from that process, it was a hard choice, but unanimously, Melissa, Chief Hyatt, rose to the top of the list in terms of our decision. It was a unanimous decision. We were all on board. That followed up with a unanimous approval from the county council. I want to thank my colleagues on the council for their support of that. As you may know, Chief Hyatt actually, and I'll let her tell her story a little bit, but she's actually a Randallstown Ram. She grew up here in Baltimore County. She's a Randallstown neighbor, and I'm really excited because by all accounts, anyone I've ever come across, and this has been really exciting because it's happened post-confirmation, anyone who's ever interacted with her has just talked about her professionalism and her tenacity and her leadership. And so I'm excited to see that take root here in Baltimore County. And so now that it's time for us to get to work with those approvals, I wanted to just talk a little bit about my philosophy when it comes to public safety. And the chief is going to share some of her thoughts, but they're very much in alignment. And at the root of it all is it's about a comprehensive, multifaceted approach. And that starts first with community. Everything always starts and ends with community. And that means getting back to connecting with our community, engaging with our community, having more resources to be embedded in our community. And that's something we're both committed to, because we are committed to making sure that, again, for as good as our numbers have been historically, we want to not only hold the line, but keep driving down our numbers, because any one person impacted by a crime, any family impacted is personal. And so we take that very seriously, and we take your safety very seriously. We also want to make sure that we are engaging in the practices that allow us to engage better with our community, because we're asking our officers to engage in very difficult work every day, but they have to also earn your trust. And part of that is about how they engage with you. That's not just being present, but it's also how you engage. So it's about providing training on things like de-escalation strategies as they engage with the public. I also believe very strongly that our force has to look like the community they deserve. And what I can tell you is that in the years ahead, we will increase our diversity in the ranks of the Baltimore County Police Department, because we have to. We have to. I'm also a big believer in transparency. And what I can tell you is that Chief Hyatt and I are already in conversations, for example, about how we might be able to make things like body-worn cameras more publicly available for critical incidents, such as police-involved shootings. And we think it's important that we find ways to make, especially in those critical incidents, for a prompt release of the information, but also that there's a consistency in how those films are released to the public. And then sort of that speaks to our larger push towards transparency, and open data is a very important part of that because, again, for all the good that we have to talk about, there are places where we want to drill down and do better together. So some of these stats that I'm going to actually invite TJ back up to share in a second here are things that really you should already know about. These should be publicly available. They should be published on our website so that you can track how things are going countywide, how things are going in your own community so that you can more meaningfully engage in the future work that we have. So again, the big takeaway is that overall crime is actually on a downward trend, but there are definitely areas we're going to be paying attention to. So with that, I'm going to toss it to TJ for some specific numbers, and then I will wrap and kick it over to the chief before turning it over to you.
All right, so the county executive and the chief were really looking at these numbers, and some, again, as the county executive referred to, weren't numbers that we were happy to see, and that's the numbers of the homicides. Right now, as we look at 2019, there are 18 homicides in Baltimore County. Obviously, for those of you who are familiar, I had a lot of experience talking about this in my previous job. It's not something we want to talk about in Baltimore County. These are human beings and human lives. And right where we are puts us on that pace that where we've been. But I know that Chief Hyde and the colonels and their staffs are doing everything they can to ensure that these numbers don't grow any higher. But I just want to give you a snapshot of through the years. And fortunately, we're not in any sort of anomaly right now as far as the spike in homicides or something, but it's something that we're acutely aware of and paying the most close attention to. Next, I want to talk about overall violent crime, and that's the combination of the assaults, the attempted murders, rapes, robberies. There's been a 7% decrease. If you look at the snapshot of last year between the first of the year and about June 1st, and you look at that again in comparison to this year, but a 7% decrease. And that's a testament to the work that the men and women of the Baltimore County Police Department are doing, and hopefully we can continue to trend in that direction. That's our responsibility as a government. That's something that the county executive and now Chief Hyde have as a priority of keeping the residents of Baltimore County safe. And we know we see a lot more because we have social media and you get to see this all the time. But again, these numbers are trending downward, and that's a very positive thing in our community. The vast majority of these are ultimately assaults, and sometimes as police you have to take those assaults of kids on kids because somebody calls the police, and that's how it's set. So moving on, overall crime in Baltimore County from 2017 to 2018 was an 8% decrease. And right now in 2019, year to date, there is also a decrease, and we're hoping to build upon that. And as you can see, the number dropped up pretty dramatically from 2017 to 2018. And again, these don't seem like anomalies. It seems like it's because of the work that's being done in the communities by the police and of course the community. So these are numbers that are certainly important to both the chief and the county executive, and the things that we all have to work together to build upon is very important. And we can see what we all can do together to keep numbers like this down and just not be our top story. All right?
Can you explain what the precincts are capturing in Western numbers?
I'm sorry, and yes, so when we pulled out the West County numbers, when we talked about the West County numbers, basically Falls Road was the dividing line that goes all the way out to, I believe it's Carroll County, and south, all the way down to Arbutus and Halethorpe. So districts, precincts 1, 2, 3, and 4 are represented here tonight when we talk about specific district numbers or specific West County numbers. So right now, West County represents less than half of the homicides, attempted murders that have happened throughout the county. Again, Sometimes you might not see that, you might not feel that, but that's what the numbers bear out right now.
And again, if there are questions about that or other data, we will either answer it tonight or we can follow up with more information. The other piece of what we want to do is make this information more specific to a council district or a zip code or a neighborhood. Those are all things that we're aspiring towards, but the whole point is to make this more available to all of you. Now, I think, obviously numbers are trending in a very positive direction. We want to make sure we keep engaging the community in meaningful ways. And part of the ways that we do that really is about upstream investments. And I talked a lot about this when I was running for this office. More PAL centers, expanded access to things like early childhood education. And so even in this budget, and many of you might have been here for the town halls where we talked about the deficit, even as we tackled some of our structural problems, we actually have positions in this budget to expand access to PAL centers. It's one of the things that we really believe are helping to get our young people in, provide them with positive role models, give them productive activities, and long-term will be part of our holistic crime strategy and public safety strategy. So you may be aware we have 3 sort of West Baltimore County PAL centers currently. They are at Scotts Branch, Winfield, and Woodmore. It is my intention, and your councilman is a very fierce advocate for this. We are looking for opportunities for expansion over here. Actually, both councilmen are fierce advocates, I should say, because we know that it matters. And education and those opportunities, recreation, are at my heart and at my core. And I think they are critical elements of how we move this forward. So as there are questions about numbers or stats or issues in the community, before I turn things over to the chief, I just want to acknowledge Debbie Risper, who is our Director of Community Outreach. She is, if you want to take down her email, feel free to do so, or take a screenshot of it. If you are part of the engagement team, if you want to just sort of wave for now. I see Mary, I see a few others. So they're all here to follow up with you and partner with you as there are questions or other needs in the community tonight. And that's part of our commitment about that engagement. And then additionally, the police actually have quite a bit of opportunities, and maybe we'll blow this up, and or we can send this out as a follow-up as well. We have officers who do everything from faith-based programs to Citizens Academy. We have Hispanic Liaison, Youth Sports Academy, so lots of opportunities to plug in and engage with the good work of our police department. So I think what might be helpful is you can try to snap a picture of that, but we'll also make sure that we send a follow-up email to all the attendees tonight so they have that information. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chief Hyatt. And then the floor is yours tonight so that we can hear from you about how we can partner. Any questions you might have. Chief.
Good evening, everyone. First, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. It's really fitting for my first public forum for it to be in Randallstown. This is where I grew up. This is where my family grew up. Started out at Randallstown Elementary School, graduated from Randallstown High School. I was a lifeguard at Randall Ridge, if anyone remembers when that still existed. So it's really fitting to be here, and I'm really excited. Before I get started, I'd really love it if all of the members of the Baltimore County Police Department that are here, if we could just go around and introduce yourselves, and if you can just call out your rank, name, and assignment, just so that way the community knows who's here representing us.
Good evening, I'm Colonel Steve Layback. I'm the Energy Operations
there are a lot of us here tonight, and there are a lot of us here because these are important meetings where we have opportunities to engage with residents in our community. I really want to thank the county executive and the county administrative officer for believing in me to nominate me for this position, and of course, county council for confirming me. Meetings like this are crucial to fostering relationships between our police department and our communities. And although this is the first meeting for me, being that this is day 3, there will definitely be more opportunities for us to have communication, and I'll be looking forward to it. I know there are already a lot of relationships that you have with some of the members of the Baltimore County Police Department that are already in the room, and I look forward to helping strengthen those relationships and develop new ones. Really, thank you to the team that's here for being so welcoming to me as I start in this organization, and it's been a great experience so far. I'm spending my time right now really learning about the police department, learning about the communities, starting to get out to some of the precincts. I've made it out to several of them to start to get to know some of our officers and some of the different dynamics in some of our communities. Like I said during my swearing in, really every community is different and dynamic, but there are certain things that we all have in common. We all want to feel safe, whether it's in our homes, our schools, businesses, places where we practice our faith. These are just very important things, our schools. And there are a lot of opportunities for us to continue to work together to resolve issues and really figure out what the things are that we need to do to make this the safest county possible. My overall vision for the Baltimore County Police Department is really quite simple. I am very guided by the principles of 21st century policing, and it's a pretty lengthy report for those that have read it, but really there's some guiding principles that are really quite resounding, and most police departments that are progressive are adhering to many of those principles. Some of them are basic things like implementing policies and procedures around accountability and transparency, improving oversight across the organization, evaluating things like our current technology, and then of course, officer safety and wellness, which is something that is often overlooked, but in a profession like law enforcement, it really can't be overlooked, and that's something that we'll be focusing on. I really look forward to continuing to learn more about this community and more about the police department. And one of the things that was already mentioned earlier tonight in terms of one of my goals that I share, which I know the county executive shares, the county administrative officer, and many of you, is the goal of diversity. And it's something that's incredibly important. And going back to that 21st century policing report, one of the things that it discusses is that the composition of a police department should reflect the composition of the community. And that helps many things, including trust and transparency between the police department and residents. So that's something that we're going to be very focused on internally as a team. We're going to be looking at our recruitment practices and ways that we can expand and do some creative things to really do a good job pulling more diversity into the police department. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for us to engage with the community as well, because there are times that many of you probably know of great places for us to be doing recruiting that we might not be aware of. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities for collaboration with that. We have a lot of work ahead, but I'm really excited to get started. I'm elated to be a part of an organization that I've felt really during my entire adult life as a very professional police department. There are a lot of great things that are already occurring within the police department, but again, even in the best organizations, there are opportunities to grow and to strengthen, and I'm really looking forward to doing that and working alongside with all of you. So I look forward to listening tonight. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to open it up to all of you. The main reason why we're here tonight is to listen. So if you want, you can come and get in line on either side of the aisle, and we'll take your questions. We're going to go ahead and start over here.
Hi, welcome Chief Hyatt. Glad to have you. I live in Reisterstown. I want you to know that I've never had a bad experience with the police department when I had an issue. I was at the PCRC last night, and one of our big concerns across the board really has been juvenile crime, and especially what happens during the school day when these kids should be in school. Now, I'd really like to see a sort of change in the role of the pupil personnel workers, used to be called truant officers, Now they spend an awful lot of their time making sure nobody's out of district and trying to help people who are homeless, and that's wonderful. But I would really like to see the PPWs, the SROs, and I know this is heaven forbid, the state juvenile services working together to make sure that the kids who are already in the system, who are on probation with the condition that they have to go to school every day, that they're in school. If that means having a bus and going around and picking them up, then that's what we need to do. And I also suggest within the school system that they might try in-school suspension. My son's school had in-school suspension when you got into trouble and the kids hated it. And usually it only took one day of sitting in the same classroom all day long, having your work brought to you and not being allowed to socialize with anybody to make them decide that they were going to behave after that. So that's really basically what I wanted to say, is that I know there's also adult crime, but the complaints I hear and what I see on Facebook and what we heard last night at PCRC were juvenile crimes, and even most recently, the most horrible crime that can happen to a police department was committed by a child who should have been in school that day and not out there running over people and burglarizing homes. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And juvenile, whether it's juvenile crime or the safety of juveniles, is something that's critically important to us. And there are a lot of opportunities. We already have a very strong relationship with the school system and some of our other peer agencies, and we'll continue to build that relationship. And of course, we have a strong SRO program in the schools as well.
And I'll just add that part of the holistic view is recognizing that the workload, the caseload for these pupil personnel workers, these counselors, and these psychologists are off the charts. And so actually having the resources in place to equip them to do that work is a priority of mine, in addition to supporting the men and women of the police department. And one of the things we did in this budget was we actually resolved a decades-long lawsuit that's going to end up costing the county $14 million to resolve, but it actually will make sure our officers are well compensated and will help the chief and her leadership team recruit and retain. It will make Baltimore County one of the most competitive jurisdictions when it comes to salary. So we're making sure we also are putting forward the resources so those folks can do that work too. But thank you. Delegate.
Thank you. Thank you, County Executive, and I appreciate all the great things you're doing to Leonard County, and welcome Chief Hyatt by introduction. My name is Dan Moorheim. I was the founding chair of emergency medicine at Franklin Square Hospital for 13 years before I got elected to the Maryland House of Delegates and represented this district for 24 years in office. When I got elected, I moved over to Sinai Hospital, where I'm still on staff. It's a level 2 trauma center, and so my clinical life informs a lot of what I'm about to say, and I've worked with people who've committed crimes, crime victims, and police officers in that setting. There was a hearing a couple of years ago. Delegate Sidnor and I were on the same committee then, and he may recall, and I asked the state's attorney, Scott Schellenberger, and I can send you the link to this hearing, how much crime in Baltimore County is due to drugs? And his answer, and I'll quote, was upwards of 85%. I asked Major Byron Conaway, who's sitting next to him in Baltimore City, and then the city said upwards of 90%. To me, they're all the things that police officers do after the crime's committed, but I'd like to shift the focus to what the previous question was, some of the root causes. And if 85% of crime in Baltimore County is due to drug addiction, we need to focus on that. And I would be remiss not to thank the county executive for pointing me to the Baltimore County Behavioral Health and Opioid Disorder Commission, and we're doing all we can along with others in that regard. But within the context of the police department and police, there are programs like law enforcement assisted diversion and other programs. The other 15% of crime, by the way, tends to be domestic violence and then behavioral health. There's not that much sporadic random crime out there. It really all has these root causes. And I think in other jurisdictions, and I think here, but I think we want to get your take on it, if citizens who are taking drugs or overdosed or having a behavioral problem can feel that they can go to the police officer and get guidance to treatment rather than worrying about being arrested and complicating their lives with an arrest record, that goes a long way towards addressing some of the root causes. And I witnessed this in Seattle, Washington, when the LEAD program started. So I would like to get your take, and the county executive, if he chooses, it's good to see you again, on how the police can address the root causes. The last comment, I'm also, as an emergency visitor, in a high burnout field, and maybe offline we can discuss some of the new interesting strategies about how health professionals are dealing with that, because I think it could transition to the lives of police officers face. So thank you very much for listening.
So I'd love to talk to you offline about that, and obviously just leaving Johns Hopkins and having a lot of interaction with individuals that are on the front line in their emergency departments, I'm definitely aware of the issues that they're dealing with as well. I am very familiar with the LEAD program. It definitely has a lot of potential. It's been successful in other cities. I would agree with you that something like addiction isn't something that we can just police our way out of. And I absolutely, the county executive and the philosophy of this administration, I think it's very clear that it's not with the perspective of trying to police our way out of it, that we really need to, as you started when you began speaking, talking about the root causes and things that really we can do to address the root causes while we're doing things that we need to do to keep the public safe. And I think that both of these things can happen on parallel tracks. There are definitely times that if there's a public safety issue that we may need to place somebody under arrest and do things like that. But there are a lot of other things that the police department can be a partner to our peers in the health department, fire department, and so many others to really have a full effect and do more than just place people under arrest for addiction issues. And last night, I had the opportunity to sit at the opioid meeting on the east side of town, and I learned a tremendous amount. I obviously am aware of the issues with opioids, but it was my first time really having familiarity with the significance of the issue in Baltimore County, and listening to some of the people that were there speaking, I think that there are a lot of people with a lot of really great ideas that we can be partners in.
Thank you. If I may, just one more. As a clinician, I get to talk to people with substance abuse disorders all the time, and they didn't know I was in politics or anything else, and I would find out a lot about their lives that they weren't willing to confess in other settings about how they got started in that life, how much it costs them. Typically $50 a day or more. That's a lot of money, 365 days a year, and that drives a whole lot of their behaviors. And there are a lot of other factors. We were dealing with a lot of somatic issues, but there were a tremendous amount of secondary causes that were, or primary causes that were substance abuse related. Do we have a LEAD program in Baltimore County now? Do you know? Law enforcement assisted diversion? We do not. So then I would thank you for taking a look at it, and I'd be happy to share my experience with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to sort of, I guess, because it is an issue that's important to the community, is sort of reemphasize what the chief was talking about the opioid work group that I've appointed in partnership with the Bloomberg School of Health. We are taking a very serious look at the issue. Baltimore County has the second highest rate of overdose, second highest number of overdose deaths because of opioids in the state of Maryland. So we are taking it very seriously. We've appointed a panel of health experts from across the county from diverse backgrounds, and they are hosting both a town hall last night on the eastern part. Later on, we can push that information out. Debbie, maybe as part of the follow-up, there'll be a meeting July 10th at CCBC in Catonsville. And we also have an online survey. We'd encourage the community to share both what we're doing well, but also where those gaps are. And I'm hoping that that group can inform a strategy for moving forward. That's the plan and the intention. They can help us, for example, to your point, Dan, about making people feel safe coming to police to get treatment. One of the things I'm asking is exploring the feasibility of replicating like a Safe Stations program here in Baltimore County, so that if people have addiction issues, they know they can go to a precinct and get pointed to. One of the challenges is we don't have any real treatment here in Baltimore County. We're also moving forward with the first treatment facility that we don't currently have. But there are real issues, and we're trying to come up with some solutions, but I appreciate adding more to the mix. So thank you. George.
Oh, yes. Again, congratulations, Chief Hyatt and the county executive for just the transparency that you have been showing us the last few months. I have mainly just a concern, a question. I'm a technology person, but I also believe in the citizens on patrol. But I know that concept is not old, but I just wanted to just kind of ask you, how do you feel about technology on patrol? Because by me being an IT person, I actually have a dash cam for my camera on my car, and I ride around. I do believe in if you see something, say something. I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about citizens helping out with the technology on patrol as we ride around and see things? Because the job that you're taking on is an awesome job, but you can't do it alone. And you need us all to have input, and as I can say, it takes a village. And some of us in the county are willing to help. We just want to know, how can we help? And I believe we can help with technology on patrol. Just how do you feel about that?
So first of all, thanks for your comment on that. I would say that we are always looking for opportunities to work with the community. What you're suggesting, of course, is valuable, but I would also say that it needs to be done safely. If somebody provides video to us about an incident that occurred, there are a lot of times that we utilize public-private partnership. We utilize business cameras and things after incidents to be able to review footage in reference to incidents. And, it's incredibly helpful, and that's something we'll continue to expand those relationships. As for somebody driving around and, let's say, videotaping or, having their cell phone camera, if there's an incident, we are always grateful to have assistance with the investigation that we're doing. But again, I think the most important thing really is the safety of our citizens. And I would never want somebody to put themselves into a position that they're putting themselves or someone else in harm's way by doing something like that. So I would just say that we absolutely appreciate the collaboration. I'm a big fan of the good old-fashioned Citizens on Patrol, and I've been very involved over the last 20 years of helping set up COP walks and things like that. So I think there's definitely opportunities. It's just important to do it safely.
And one last question. How do you feel about Citizens Act? It's an act that's circulating around where you can actually witness or instantaneously see what's going on around you.
I'm familiar with it. It's certainly like a lot of the other apps out there. There's definitely some merit. There's a lot that's accurate, but I'll leave it up to each potential user to decide if it's something that's valuable for them. But I'm very familiar with it.
Okay, thank you.
Beth Wiseman, I'm a retired school teacher, elementary school teacher in Baltimore City. I have two suggestions. My concern, of course, is the children. Number one suggestion is there's a tremendous resource there that I don't think is being tapped, and that is the young people who are already showing signs of getting in trouble. And the resource would be to have them in a coalition to say, what can we do to help you to prevent? Because I've talked with people who said, if only so-and-so would have happened. And I, as a school teacher, my heart was just broken when I hear these people say this. If only so-and-so would have happened, that would have turned me around. So I think that talking with the young children and having a forum and having an ongoing council of young people who are already heading in trouble to tell you what needs to be done, what got you here, and what can we do to prevent other people from getting here, and what can we do to get you out of this. Use them as a resource, because all the resources that I know of have letters after their names, and they're not the people who are in the trenches. That's one suggestion. The other suggestion is, I know in the transition report that one of the issues you were concerned with is volunteerism. I'm very happy that you're going to open up the schools to the young people. It's very necessary, but I think many issues can be addressed in these schools, such as creative writing, art, all kinds of things. I know in my school, I asked the teachers if they would be willing to stay 1 hour a week and teach anything they wanted to teach. So somebody would teach modeling, somebody would teach dance, somebody would teach makeup, somebody would teach clothes. They had all kinds of things. Somebody taught Spanish. They had all kinds of fun things, and the children were so excited they couldn't wait for this day that they could go to I call them clubs. that they could go to their clubs. So I think the same thing can be done, using volunteers in these centers, not only having physical education activities, but having other things that interest children. Now, one of the boards that I'm on is RSVP, Baltimore County Department of Aging, that has volunteers, but I don't think these young people are going to want to relate to the old folks to be volunteering them, but I'm sure on the same basis, and maybe some of them would, you know, if there's drama, if there's art, if there's something that's really dynamic for these children, but nevertheless, I'm sure that there are a lot of people in Baltimore County who would not mind volunteering to go into these centers and have an art club, a drama club, a creative club, writing club, poetry club, etc., so that these children after school, after homework, have something exciting to go to and keep them off the street and in the wrong community. Thank you.
So Beth, thank you for that. Thank you for teaching. I actually want to really thank you for reading our transition report. That's exciting.
Not only that, I have it printed out. I mean, I've got it.
That's great. So I'm actually I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I'm going to encourage you. We're actually putting together a volunteerism panel. It's one of the transition recommendations, and so I'm gonna have our outreach team give you that information as that's happening. Because given your background and some of your ideas, I think those ideas need to be put to action. So I'd love to have you be part of helping us build that out, because I think, as you pointed out, as awesome as our Department of Aging is, and they have a great volunteerism program, they're helping Barry and Sam in the back, Safe Summer with the BSO concert. They're putting forward like 40 or 60 volunteers? 80 volunteers, there you go. But we want to make sure we have lots of opportunities, so I'd love to have you plug into to that effort.
And you remember, it's 1,200 people go to Marcus West every year for their annual appreciation luncheon. 1,200, and that's carved in stone. That's been for years and years.
And I saw all the zeros of what that check was in terms of volunteer time.
I know, yeah.
And that's a great one, but it's just to your point, it goes back to engaging our young people and giving them outlets and opportunities, and having them volunteer and have volunteers connect with them is a real passion and priority. And so I'd love to have you be part of that panel that's being put together. So.
It would be an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me first congratulate Alyssa on her appointment. Johnny, that was a brave move, and I'm sure she's going to do the county proud in her performance. I moved in the neighborhood in 1983. I live right across from Milford Mill High School, and I'm telling you, I'm really proud of the Baltimore County Police Department, because on a number of occasions I've had to call the police, and the police department, they responded quickly, and I'm sure if they didn't respond so quickly, it would have been injuries. If not, someone might have been killed. But I have a tendency to ask tough questions, so I'm going to do so. Every officer in the room that has a gold badge, could you please stand? You see a problem? No women.
I saw one.
No women. No women. And of course, you know where you are. You're around this town, Owensville and Woodlawn. Two of them are African Americans. So this is not just an issue for y'all, it's an issue for my elected officials, and I'd like to know what's the plan to resolve that issue. That's an observation, and let me ask a question.
Sure.
Because I had no intention of coming this evening, because I'm dealing with 3 gophers in my backyard. But I got a phone call, so I had to come. What's the department policy on pre-positioning the patrol cars? Because we have 2 or 3 hot spots on Liberty Road where it is an open drug market. Right up here at the 7-Eleven on Marysville Road, right there on Old Court Road, right there in front of Greek Village. And today at the farmer's market, at approximately 5 o'clock, when everybody was backing up, we had a group of juveniles reeking of marijuana, speaking out of turn and cursing and acting, unrespectfully. they invaded the market and made a lot of people feel uncomfortable. So what is the position of pre-staging the police cruisers in those particular areas? And the final question is, Johnny, you've been in the office a while now, are you having fun yet?
I have more gray hair. This job is, I'm going to work backwards if that's all right. And I'm actually going to let the chief answer the pre-position question because I don't know the answer as well. I'm having a fantastic job. At the time, I love this job. I'm worried that this might be the best job I'll ever have in my life. So
you're not going to run for governor?
I'm worried this might be the best job I ever have in my life. I feel very fortunate to do it. I wake up every day and I know that I have an opportunity to help make the lives of other people better. I mean, 850,000 people in Baltimore County, and we can make their lives better. And so I wake up every day, I'm excited. My daughter sometimes drives me a little crazy in the morning trying to get her to school, but it's hard. It's long hours, it's challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding. So yes, I'm having fun. 6 months in. I'm glad that you pointed out in very stark ways the need for a change in how we approach not just recruitment, but promotion within this department. Prior to the chief's appointment, there were no women in executive command. There are not enough minorities in executive command, or frankly in our ranks. So as we look at both promotional practices and recruitment practices in the department collaboratively, I will tell you that my plan, and I'm sure the chief will be supportive of this, we will look at every class coming in, and we will ask the questions of how many women, how many people of color, what are the religious backgrounds of these individuals, where do they live from, where do they live, are they from different parts of the county, is there a geographic distribution? Because I think that diversity has to be all things. Do we have people who have military backgrounds? Do we have people who have other experiences that they're bringing to bear? And we've got a long way to go, but I think we've got the right people in place to start making a difference about it. And in the same way that we're reporting data on crime, my commitment is we're going to start reporting data on what those diversity numbers look like, not just in the police department, but in the Baltimore County workforce. Because it's something we need to be better about across the board. It's not just a 21st century policing imperative, it's a good government imperative. People who work in all of our departments and all of our agencies should reflect the diversity of our communities.
The pre-positioning of the police cruisers and now hotspots on the road.
Sure, and actually, so I can give you the best information on that possible. Part of the reason why we brought so many of our executive core tonight was to make sure that we could answer in specificity about concerns. So, Colonel, I'm going to turn it over to you and the rest of the operations team to provide some light on this question.
You're not going to get off that easy.
New Jersey, I'm going to be loud. Anyway, so we do put officers in pre-staged areas. Basically, we do everything off of statistics. So if we have a statistical means that say we're having a problem in an area, we will put specialized units in that area. Each crime is investigated a little bit differently. Obviously, narcotic crimes are different than property type crimes. So coordination with our criminal investigation bureau, we may have police in that area, you may just not see them. I can tell you for a fact that Woodlawn Precinct Commander, Wes Fisher, we have units up in that area right now, but we also need help. We need to call 911, we need people to step up, so we're making sure we're stopping the right people. Because obviously we don't want to be coming in on an area just based off of rumor or innuendo or anything like that. Did that kind of answer your question?
Sure does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hang tight for me, Ms. Walker.
Hi, my name is Ariel Singletary. I'm on the Liberty Road Board. I'm Valley Brook President of Pikesville. So first of all, congratulations on your appointment. And for the new administration, I feel a lot of fresh air coming in. And the main issue I'm seeing is almost piggybacking on the young lady who spoke before me. These kids need jobs. And when I was a kid, I was working at McDonald's on Liberty Road. I was the first black girl working at McDonald's on Liberty Road. If it means it's not gonna be in the Smithsonian, but I was. And I walked up there after church, before church 10 times. I don't think these kids have it in them to keep walking and begging for jobs. When I was a teenager, I didn't qualify for Cedar Manpower was a job program that they had for teens. I think it'd be 14 to 16. And then when I was in college, I worked with Social Security as a student aide. You could work there from high school until you graduated from college. So those are 3 job programs that have been, not 3, 2 job programs that have been disbanded. I have been pointing out in my community, there's a local banquet hall that's been hiring. And so I've been pointing out people, but you're talking about 5, 6, 7 people out of how many teens are running around here. And it shouldn't really be the county problem to make sure kids have jobs, because they could start a lawn mowing business, and that's next week's show. You know, they could do raking, and then we also send out, in our community emails, we send out people who kids have started lawnmower business, landscaping, gardening businesses, and so people can call them removing junk if their father has a truck. So we try to do what we can, but yesterday, for example, I'm in my yard doing yard work, 4 guys walking around, and I said, hey, you working? And they were like, no, I'm not working. And they said, we're looking for work. But some kids, unless you have a strong parent household that's gonna say, hey, come here, we're gonna plug in and go to all these different places, like Adrian Jones had a job program at Milford Mill about 4 years ago, and it was only a few jobs there, but it beats a blank. And unless those, I noticed that the kids did not have the parents to maneuver them and bring them around to the different places. For example, I'm not gonna say the department said that they didn't hire people over 21, under 21. And we said that's not true, and we had that person call their boss. And they said that is true, I don't know if they hired anyone. So I know we're in a deficit.
Not anymore.
Okay. Oh, that's good news, because,
We fixed it.
okay. Well, since we're not in a deficit, and I don't know what the rainy day fund is for, even if we're not necessarily, maybe we could put aside some little amount of money to get some kids some jobs, some makeshift, almost like what the lady said before me, maybe they could teach the seniors how to use computers. I mean, there's an array of things that people could do. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's good. So the teacher in me loves how many people are advocating for our young people here. So thank you for doing that. I know that our administrative officer, Stacy Rogers, and I share a passion. This is what happens when your administrative officer is a social worker by practice. But replicating a robust summer jobs program is on our list of priorities. It was one of the things that we just couldn't afford in this particular budget to really go expand because we were facing an $81 million deficit. But it is on our priority list. We are, in addition to looking at putting forward some county dollars towards that kind of an initiative in next year's budget, we are also actively engaging the nonprofit community and the philanthropic communities to see if there are ways that we can get some of those dollars in place now for this summer, even as we also try to engage them to leverage our dollars better for the following summer. Because one of the things that Stacy has brought to this job is a reminder that as we're trying to do these big things, that we can also leverage federal money, state money, private sector money, so that $1 would actually be $4 or $5, and we can be smarter about how we meet these needs of our communities in a way that's also responsive to our taxpayers. But thank you.
Good evening. Congratulations. I'm really happy to see you here. Had the gentleman ahead of me not pointed out what he observed, I would have pointed it out. And I'm going to tell you why. My name is Linda Dorsey Walker, and I'm an elected member of the Baltimore County Democratic State Central Committee. I represent the 11th District for 3 terms, and prior to that, I represented the 10th District for 3 terms. But the reason I came tonight was to talk about law enforcement training. Many years ago, or several years ago, in this facility, I organized and chaired the first of several law enforcement training programs. They were a day long. Some of the officers here may have participated. It included law enforcement from every jurisdiction in the state of Maryland, every sheriff's office, police office, FBI, FEMA, Homeland Security. That was the first one. After that, word spread around about how really great this training was, we had to move it to Towson University for the next 3 times. And it was a day-long breakfast included, lunch, all the rest of it. Each time we had 350 to 400 law enforcement officers attend, and we gave continuing education credits to those that needed it. And the last time that we organized it, we had help from Colonel Kim Ward, female officer, Officer Erica Dingle, female officer, Officer Kia Williams, female officer, Sergeant Bobby Zaleski, female officer, and also Captain Andre Davis, not female. So we had, from Baltimore County, a very robust level of support for this initiative. We had several female officers included and members of the minority community, as well as people from all over the state of Maryland. Who was the speaker? Let's see, the head of counterterrorism for the United States, the Undersecretary for Intelligence and Analysis. We had topics covered like the community need to know and what to do about mental health triggers, civilian active shooter engagement, where and when to run, hide, fight, and so forth. First responder best practices, prevention, response, mitigation, drilling, staging, and triage. We had how healing begins for witnesses, communities, and for first responders, their mental health needs after a critical incident. Assessing the threat, safety, and security levels in workplaces, and so forth. I continue to run into officers that have attended one of these several conferences that I've organized. And they've asked, when are we going to have some others? Because at the time I put these on, no other jurisdiction in the state of Maryland was putting them on. So as a result, I had people from 6 surrounding states say, can we send officers from New Jersey, from New York, from Pennsylvania to participate in this 400 officer training event? And I'd like to start putting them on again. And prior to that, we also had, just so you can be aware, monthly meetings at the community policing meetings with the Human Relations Commissions, with the Office of Fair Practices, which doesn't exist any longer. And we talked about the need to deal with fair practice and hate crime issues and the officers' responsibility under the FBI requirements to fill out certain hate crimes documentation. The first time we gave the training here, I asked how many officers had seen the particular form that they're required to fill out by the FBI. Guess how many people stood up? 2. 2, and it had already been a requirement for 7 years at that point. So hopefully our new county executive will include me on his volunteer board. And in any case, I hope to be able to start a dialogue about the need to continue doing police training. It was really a great help.
Thank you for your comment, and I can tell you I'm definitely in favor of any quality training for our officers. So we'll have somebody speak to you at the end so we can get some more information, okay? Thank you.
I love the volunteerism for volunteerism. So we will follow up with you as well, Melinda. The other issue, because you mentioned the Office of Fair Practices, is we're actually also creating a panel on diversity and inclusion. It's another one of our recommendations from the transition group to help inform me and our team as we sort of make these decisions, again, enterprise-wide, about how we can be more inclusive in our decision making and view all decisions of county government through an equity lens, which is something we haven't done historically in Baltimore County. Relatedly, I also want to again thank Councilman Jones and Patoka for their leadership in fighting to keep in. We actually put back in a position to be working full-time, a diversity coordinator for Baltimore County government. So we're moving back towards having individuals, again, to take that government-wide look at our fair practices, at our diversity efforts to help inform and report into the executive office about how we can do better. So that was a position that was actually criticized by some other council members, and I have great relations with the entire council, but I want to thank these two council members for fighting for that position because I think it's important. So, gentlemen, thank you for that, and thanks for raising the issues. Linda.
Good evening. I'd like to first congratulate you on your appointment, and Johnny, congratulations to you too. You were once a teacher at Tasco while my daughter was attending there. So I am a teacher of Baltimore County. I'm also a resident of Baltimore County. I live right in the Windsor Mill area near Campfield Elementary School. My name is Gloria Cooper-Blue, and I am interested in three things. One, again, for the teens, the jobs that are available for them, and because I see that there's like an increase of foreign students in the school system in this area as well. In my neighborhood, I am familiar with some African American students, some African students, and also Hispanic. And I wanted to know what jobs are going to be available for the teens for this center, like the PAL Center, Rec Center, things like that, for them to be actively engaged in. I also have a question about Security Mall. I don't know if you visited there lately, but there are a lot of dilapidated stores that have been like that for quite some time now. I've been a resident in this area for about 12 years. There are two restaurants that used to be there, IHOP and I forget the other one, but they haven't been in existence, and I see that the mall is kind of like falling to the wayside with some of the stores that are leaving. Want to know what kind of projects do you foresee happening in that area to increase maybe jobs again for teens? And my third question is about the Red Line District when it comes to transportation. We were having meetings here about the Red Line District to try to open up this corridor. As you know, that Baltimore County is increasing in population, especially in certain areas like Owens Mills, Randallstown, and the bus only goes up to about Marysville Road, and then it turns around and comes back. So if more people are moving out further, we have teenagers in the area, they don't have access to the jobs. There's no jobs available, no transportation. What do you foresee happening with transportation in the Red Line? The way that was cut down, I was kind of disappointed with all the work that we put in. Having access to maybe other areas for the teens to go, maybe downtown, Canton, further out to where Under Armour is, where the jobs are, because if they don't have transportation to get there, it's going to make it that much more difficult.
And I'm going to let Drew finish with Security Mall because he's actually been leading a lot of the conversations there and might have some ideas. Before I get there, I think I would just reiterate that we are committed to expanding a summer job program in Baltimore County. Debbie, I think another follow-up would be to talk to Will Anderson and sort of identify if there are existing opportunities to connect some of our young people to. So if you have people in mind, we can sort of see what resources are currently available, knowing full well that we have to expand those in the years ahead now that we've actually resolved some of our budget challenges. The Red Line was a missed opportunity, and it was ill-informed decision by the governor. There was hundreds of millions of dollars of federal money that just went away from Baltimore City and Baltimore County and is now being spent all over the country. And unfortunately, we are probably at least 10 years away from even coming close to replicating that opportunity. That being said, while I'm disappointed in what happened there, there's an opportunity for us to lead locally and to continue to engage our state partners. So we have moved forward to making transportation a bigger priority in Baltimore County. We've hired a dedicated deputy position in the Department of Public Works who is solely focused on transportation issues and how do we make our region more accessible. It sort of goes to the larger question of actually being a regional partner. So Mary Young and I actually have a very good relationship, and we're talking about how do we partner to do things like improve public safety, improve transportation, create more economic development opportunities. And so I think that collaboratively, again, regionally, and sort of trying to pull in more state resources to address some of the transportation needs And frankly, that's why these conversations are so helpful, because we know where those needs are. Trade Point Atlantic in eastern Baltimore County over in Sparrows Point is a huge job center. But if we can't get our young people to those jobs, we're doing them a disservice. And the Red Line would have accomplished a lot of that. But we have to find alternatives. In the absence of that, we're committed to working with you to do that. The last thing I'd say before I give it to Drew to talk about security a little bit is that first, we're committed to doing more at security. There are a number of challenges because there are different owners and some other issues, but I also know that Liberty Road is an important economic development need, and I don't want to get too far out in front of my skis, but look for an announcement in the coming months about some efforts that we're going to be trying to launch to address some of the concerns along Liberty Road as well. So I'll pass it to Drew with that little teaser.
Can I just say that I just don't want you to forget about this part of the county because it's high in African American population, and I see other growth areas like in White Marsh, Hunt Valley, Towson, and I feel like this corridor is being left out, even with Owens Mills, you know, that corridor being built up, and I don't see that much happening here.
I will not forget this part of the county. If you talk to some folks who spent some time, I've practically, it's been great because I feel like I've been living here during the campaign and got to know just how wonderful these communities are. And frankly, as someone who grew up in the Dundalk community, grew up alongside a lot of people with the same feelings of being left behind, being forgotten, not having the investment that communities deserve. And so I sort of felt that very personally about what that lack of investment meant, whether it's road resurfacing or economic development opportunities. That's why I was very intentional when we launched our campaign for this job. Actually, it was in the Woodlawn Village Shopping Center, because it was a center that I think has a lot of potential. It's not been realized, and it just requires us to really dig deep and make it happen. So I just want to look you in the eye and tell you, I will not forget this, or frankly any community, because it's not about pitting communities against each other. It's about making every community thrive and having that bar of a Towson or any other community be the standard to which we aspire to have all of our communities, and that's my goal as county executive. And I might not hit it everywhere I go, but it's about pushing it as absolutely high as we can. Get my commitment to do that. So,
thank you. Good evening. So first off, the county executive shares the concerns about Security Square and the need to see that whole area revitalized. A few months ago, he convened all of the property owners of Security Square Mall, kind of the mall itself and some of the surrounding areas, to just start sharing ideas about the future of the property. The challenge is that there are 5 or so different large property owners there that are still, you know, making revenue at a level that they can continue to sustain their operation. And until we get sort of ownership consolidated, it limits you a little bit in terms of what you can do. But certainly we're interested in helping to lead the charge to develop that vision for the mall. That meeting that we had was kind of just the first step, and we're going to continue to have those discussions and to bring those owners together, as well as to engage the community with to generate ideas as to what we would like to see in that space that better serves the community. We know there's been a lot of turnover with the stores, there are vacancies, there are establishments there that aren't meeting the needs of the community right now. So community engagement is going to be a big part of those discussions as well. So more to come on that.
I'm just afraid that if we lose the anchor store Macy's, because, you know, some of our brick and mortar stores are closing down, they're already lost, like Old Navy, some of the other stores that were in the mall, that will then become just another eyesore. And some of the restaurants that were there have been closed for over 10 years, and nothing has been developed there. But I still see other areas in the county being developed. And I just want to make sure that we're not left behind and we're not forgotten. Thank you.
Absolutely agree. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Max Wolfall. The HOA president and also the security coordinator of Queen Anne Village in Owings Mills. If that's not enough, I'm also the associate director of the PCRC at Precinct 4. First off, congratulations. And I gotta tell you, you got a good bunch of people working under you. I've had nothing but positive experiences with the people in the police department, but I do have one problem. First point of communication with the police department is not. It's 911. And over the years, I've noticed a real downhill slide. I used to feel comfortable calling if something was really, and I call a lot because of what I do for my community, and I can't get my residents to call, so I end up calling for a lot of things. I get asked a lot of questions in the last few years that aren't relevant to what I'm calling about. If I say a tree fell across Riceburstown Road, they ask me what the suspects were wearing. Okay, and it just goes from bad to worse with this all the time. I understand there's some kind of new national standard they have to follow or something. It really doesn't make sense. A lot of people call 911, they're desperate, they've got a problem. And they want somebody to talk to them in a positive manner pretty quick. I'm not getting that anymore. A few years back, I was behind a drunk driver. And I watched this person sideswipe things, was running cars off the road. I called 911. They told me, sir, we have to hang up on you. This is a liability issue. Where was the last place you saw the car? I said, Riceburstown Road. Where are you now? I said, approaching Park Heights Avenue. Well, that's where we're sending the police to. Well, that's great. In 5 minutes, they're going to be all the way to Green Spring Avenue, taking side streets, which they were. I never saw a police officer because they're not being directed where to go. I called 911 about a month ago. I got a recording. I called back again. I got another recording. Thankfully, it wasn't an emergency. It was a trespasser in the neighborhood. It was one of those kind of things. And I just kept getting the recording for the better part of an hour. 2 weeks ago, I woke up in pain at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was having what turned out to be a heart attack. I woke my wife. This was, to all you remember what happened to Kevin Cabinets. We jumped in the car and we went to Station 19 trying to save some time. I was on my cell phone as we were pulling on their lot. I was at the front door. I said, I'm at Riceburstown Road and Kenmar Avenue on the parking lot of Station 19. I'm having a heart attack. Can you get me some help? First question, is this a house or an apartment? This call went on for 7 minutes. My wife is blowing the horn, pounding on the door, doing everything else. They're not going to hear inside. They're in the back sleeping. I still have the call. 7 minutes I was on there. And it got to the point, I said, lady, you're trying to kill me. Why can't you understand where I am and what I need? Can you just please send somebody to the door? 7 minutes. That's not acceptable.
So, I'm sorry you had those experiences first and foremost. That's not the level of service that we expect excellence in Baltimore County. The 911 center is separate from the police department, but what we can do is if you're comfortable sharing the dates and times you call, we can coordinate with them and actually pool the information about both the call with the station and as well as if you have information about the date or times you call about the recording, because that's not standard operating procedure for a 911 center. It sounds like an anomaly. And frankly, if it was happening, that's usually the kind of things that would be elevated and I'd be made aware of. So we're happy to investigate into what the circumstances might be. But again, that's not the level of customer service we're committed to provide here in Baltimore County.
And one of the things is when you call 911, you speak to a call taker who is sending information over to a dispatcher while they're on the line. So sometimes you might not think that the officer's en route, but a councilman has something to say.
How you doing? I'm Councilman Jones, and in case some here may not know, I spent 32 years in the fire service. And I used to be in charge of the 911 center, so I know a little bit about the 911 center. And in reference to the phone, in reference to the questions, those are national programs that everybody is using now. And overall, those programs are good programs. It's Fire 911, EMS 911, and Police 911. But when we get your location, automatically help is on the way. We still have to ask the questions. But more importantly than anything, I want to stress this to everybody in the room. If you think you're having a medical emergency, do not, let me say it again 3 more times. Do not get in your car and go to a fire station. You're not doing yourself any good. It worked out good for you, and thank God it did. But many others, including Kevin Camus, it did not work out well for him. When you are having a medical emergency, especially a heart attack, the best thing you can do is lie flat and dial 911 and relax. And don't put any additional stress on your heart. Don't put any demands for blood. Relax. We have a system in place, and people in this area, in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, Anne Arundel, Prince George's, we are very fortunate that we have one of the best EMS systems in the country, in this region, because we have county fire departments that are staffed with professionals. We have trauma centers here. We have hospitals here. You go to other parts of the country, you don't have those things. So the best thing you can do, dial 911, relax, answer the questions, help is on the way. The minute that we pick up that telephone call, as long as it's not an old flip phone, if it's a new smartphone, we have your location, we verify it, help is on the way. The call taker is still asking questions, but help is on the way. As soon as you said heart attack, help is on the way. Because the people that have the experience, they just put the code in, but then they still have to fill out the boxes. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to share that.
One other thing I wanted to share, and this is in collaboration with the council, is so that we actually can service both the emergencies and also the non-emergencies. Later on in this year, we actually pushed it off in the budget cycle to realize some significant savings, but Baltimore County is actually in the process of joining most other major jurisdictions in establishing a 311 system. So currently, if you have a non-emergency, you're supposed to call 410-887-2222. Now, that's a little more elaborate than most people. Most people are sort of used to the 311 system. You might be surprised to learn that about 8,000 people call 311 in Baltimore County. Is that right, Rob? Is it 8,000? And then about 6,000 of those 8,000 every month keep pushing 0 because they want to talk to a person. And so when you call 311 currently, you get a recording with sort of access points and numbers. But we've realized that people want that level of customer service, and frankly, they deserve it. It's also will help take the strain off of some of our emergency system on the 911 side to make sure we don't have any issues getting people connected to services.
All right, let's try to get back to 2 minutes. It's been a nice TJ 2 minutes. But now we have to tighten it up because we're wrapping up the evening.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Hyatt, first, congratulations and welcome to Baltimore County. We're glad to have you. I also want to thank our police for the great work that you do. My name is Sheila Ruth. I'm a member of the Democratic Central Committee in Baltimore County, and I just wondered if you could share your thoughts, first of all, about community policing and also about dealing with people in mental health crisis.
So I'll start with the community policing piece. It's something that I believe in very strongly, but for me, community policing is a philosophy that has to go across the operations of an entire police department, not just a small group of individuals. So, I think there will be a lot of opportunities to, once we start to put some of our plans together, to see some of the things that we put in place for that. As for the issue with individuals in mental health crisis, that's something that is a significant concern across the country. And some of the training, for example, that I know that Baltimore County is already involved with, which when I was in Baltimore City, I brought into that organization, is something that Police Executive Research Forum puts out. It's called ICAT, or Integrating Communications Assessment and Tactics. It's basically
de-escalation training to help our officers when they're engaging with individuals who are experiencing a mental health crisis, to really teach them how to communicate, respond, and really essentially create a bit of space and time so that way they don't need to react in ways that we may have reacted in the past. I know there's a lot of other great work that's already being done in terms of managing mental health crises, and I know we have some folks on the team that are here. Colonel Jones, is there anything that you would want to add?
Well, here in Baltimore County, we have a mobile crisis team that operates 24 hours a day. So the mobile crisis team is paired up with a police officer, with a clinician. So anytime someone is in crisis, the police officer and the clinician responds to the location and tries to mitigate the situation to get the person help. We've actually gone 24 hours a day. A couple months ago, it's been working. One thing that Baltimore County does well is deal with mental health. We've been working with this mobile crisis team for 17 years in Baltimore County. So we are actually doing it well here, and we are actually doing it great. So that's pretty much it.
I was at an event earlier today on mental health and law enforcement, and you would not believe how many agencies still aren't doing the clinician with the officer. It's a big deal. So the agency, and luckily our region, is getting more progressive when it comes to dealing with those types of behaviors. It's important.
And I'll just add, Sheila, and this is again a credit to Chief Hyatt and her team, but we, in terms of taking a more holistic approach to our communities in general, as a follow-up to this series, heading towards the fall, late summer, early fall, we're actually going to be lining up some actual community walks where we're not just engaging our public safety team in the police department, but I'll make sure that our administration, or we're all one administration, we're going to also bring part of the rest of the team. So Steve Walsh in Public Works, as appropriate economic development, we'll have all sort of the cleanliness, the public works, the paving, the sidewalks, so that we can holistically address concerns in the community about not just safety, but also the quality and the well-being of our neighborhoods. Neighborhood walks in Baltimore County. Coming to you soon.
All right. My name is Kenny Brown. I'm publisher of the Northwest Voice Community Newspaper. My question is twofold, and probably for both of you. But Johnny, I'd probably like to have you answer first. And again, congratulations to you, Chief Hyatt. Baltimore County is a great county with over 800,000 people. We have lots of talent, lots of professionals here. My question to the county executive is, what was it that you saw in Chief Hyatt that you didn't believe we had in Baltimore County already to say that we go outside Baltimore County to bring someone in to run the system? Then my question is to Chief Hyatt, who is coming from Baltimore City, and not putting down Baltimore City, but Baltimore City Police Department is not the police department that I want to hold the standard. So again, what do you think you're bringing to Baltimore County that we didn't already have here?
I mean, first and foremost, I would say that Chief Hyatt has both the vision that most aligned with what I shared at town halls, but equally as important, what I heard the needs of our communities are. And she was very clearly articulate in understanding that. And I would say that not only does she share the vision, but she also brings to bear the experiences. And I would say that the chief as she mentioned, she's from here. She's always lived in Baltimore County.
I came a little late, so I might have missed her part.
Yeah. So she has lifelong roots as a county resident, as a Randallstown Ram. She is connected and has always been connected to Baltimore County. And I mentioned this earlier too. I mean, those over 20 years of experience, she has excelled and has been exceptional in all of her roles, which is why she was elevated to the highest ranks within the Baltimore Police Department. And I would say that, I'm just going to push back and say that just because an agency has had problems does not mean that every single person in that agency should be painted with that brush. And anyone who knows Chief Hyatt would tell you that she has the highest ethical, moral compass that is out there, and her integrity is impeccable. And I have every confidence, both again because of her experience and her vision, are all reasons why I selected her to be the chief.
And I would say preliminarily that, looking at the team here that's already in the Baltimore County Police Department, there's exceptional talent. And I think even in the best agencies, there's value in bringing in outside independent perspective to look at the operations of an agency with a fresh set of eyes. So what I bring, absolutely, I come from an agency which has a lot of men and women that are working very hard every day and doing a great job, but it's also an agency that has had its share of trials and tribulations. So during the course of my 20-year career there, I've seen a lot of things that have been done very well and a lot of things that I learned I would do differently in terms of accountability and management. So those are the things in terms of my own experiences that I bring here to a police department that operates very well, that I would like to see continue to move into the next decade, operating at a high level, and to make sure that some of the pitfalls and the issues that I've seen during the course of my career are things that we can make sure that we avoid here.
Kenny, I mentioned this at the beginning too. It wasn't just a me thing. There was a large panel, and Chief Hyatt was, and I don't want to get into the details of it, was exceptionally highly recommended among all of the applicants by the panel. She was unanimously the choice of our administrative officer, myself, and chief of staff as in terms of the person we were choosing to forward to the county council, and she was unanimously affirmed by the county council as well. So this was always meant to be a process that was about more than just me in terms of making the decision. And I think that in the years ahead, we're going to look back and say, I'm really glad that she was brought in to move our agency into the future here at the county.
And don't get me wrong, I understand that sometimes talent, the best talent, comes from other places. But the question is, I knew a county this large, this size, we have to be loaded with talent. And Chief Hyatt, we have to be loaded with talent. I'm watching it with our school board, your fire chief, now our police chief. It always seems like the answer to Baltimore County is always from someplace else other than Baltimore County.
So two things. We are loaded with incredible talent, and I think that because of that reason, we are going to be exceptional in the years ahead. I would challenge that statement actually. If you look at our leadership team in Baltimore County, the vast majority of folks who are either elevated or retained actually were in that position and were Baltimore County employees. So I think it's actually valuable. This goes back to the diversity piece of having different perspectives across your senior leadership. And I talked about doing things a little differently in Baltimore County, and that requires sometimes having a full team. This isn't about one agency, but having both people who have lots of Barry is still our Director of Recreation Parks. Rob is still our Director of Information Technology. Dr. Branch is still our Director of Health and Human Services. Gail Watts is still the Director of Corrections. So I can go on and on with the list of people who have. Dave Likens was the Deputy Director of DEPS. He's now the Director. So I can go on and on in terms of, we retained Keith Dorsey as our Budget Director. I mean, I can go on, and it's really just about each individual circumstance, but I want to sort of dispel that fallacy that everyone's due. We actually have a very, very large portion of my senior leadership team have been retained and have been in county government for a very long time.
Well, I know everyone isn't new. It's just some key individuals that come. But you're building your team, so you have the right to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Stansel, and I live in Woodlawn, and I just want to leave something with you. I have a concern. I read that Family Dollar is going to start selling liquor. Now, I don't know if they have a liquor license, and I think I talked with Councilman Jordan. And I'm a little concerned about that because I'm just putting it out that there's a Family Dollar in Woodmore Shopping Center off of Liberty Road in Essex. And that means it might have more crime in that area. It's down the road. I don't have all the information about it, but I'm putting it out so that you will know it has been anticipated that Family Dollar stores, and they're all in basically the African American community. And I do have concern about, that being in our areas.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I don't know offhand, but we can certainly follow up and make sure we look into that with you.
Okay.
So thank you for raising it. Thank you.
Last question.
Just wanted you to know that the webpage I looked at said it would start at 8 o'clock tonight. I got here 2 minutes late, you're almost done.
Yeah, I don't know which web page you refer to, but we'll make sure we forward it. If you can forward it to us, we can make sure. But you're here, so you get to ask a question or?
No. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. It's almost over.
The good news is, are we live streaming, TJ?
Yes.
So everything that was said tonight, as we do with all of our outreach and all of our meetings, we live stream it on our Facebook page so that you can go back and relive this wonderful evening together. But I do apologize if there was misinformation on our webpage, sir.
Baltimore County Government Facebook page, if you want to watch this, you got here late, you can rewatch it. I know Councilman Patoka is also live streaming it. So thank you all. I want to turn it back over to
I just really wanted to thank everyone for coming out. Thanks for the great conversation. I look forward to being back in this community with our team and working together closely with all of you.
And as always, I want to thank both the chief, her leadership team, all the leaders in Baltimore County government for making themselves present. That's what we're going to do with these community walks. That's what we're going to do with Cabinet in the community, where we're going to bring the full focus of all of our county agencies to similar town halls so that we can address your concerns. That's the fundamental role of government. So thank you for being such engaged residents here in Baltimore County. We will make sure if there are individual follow-ups, you'll get it. And otherwise, feel free to grab Debbie and members of her team on the way out. But everybody have a great night. Thanks for coming out.